A family wants to go on a trip but can't decide on the details. They have narrowed their destination to Hawaii, Europe, and Asia. They can travel either by plane or by cruise, and they can go luxurious or cheap. So these are the three different options you have to pick from, right? Um, so we want to answer these three questions. What is the probability that they take a luxurious trip to Europe? What is the probability that they take a cheap trip by cruise? And what is the probability they take a plane to Asia? Right, so in order to answer this question, probably best to do a tree diagram. Okay, so once again, there are three different choices here, right? The location, right, how they get there, and I guess we can call it the budget. Okay, so when we make a tree diagram, right, we want to write down all the possibilities from these options, right? So let's take a look, right? First, they're going to pick the location, right? So we'll call that the first row, I guess. Right, so we'll write down Hawaii here. Okay, Europe and Asia, right? And then underneath we'll write the probability, right? What is our probability that they pick Hawaii? Okay, so that's going to be 1/3, and the Europe is going to be 1/3, and Asia is going to be 1/3. Okay, and then what's next, right? So then you have to decide, okay, are we going to take a plane or are we going to go by cruise, right? So we're going to draw the next tree here, okay, or the next branch, right? So they can go either by plane or by a cruise. Okay. And same thing for Europe, right? Once they decide to go to Europe, then okay, are we going to go by plane or are we going to go on a cruise? Okay, and finally, of course, with Asia as well, right? Are we going to go by plane or are we going to go by cruise? Okay. And what about what's the probability that they go on a plane, right? Well, it's either plane or cruise, right? So this is going to be 1/2. Okay, 1/2 here, 1/2 here, and these are each actually going to be 1/2, right? And then what's the last choice you have to make, right? Are we going to go luxurious or are we going to sort of save money and go cheap, right? So from this branch, where we're going to do another one, and we're going to go luxurious or we're going to go cheap, okay? And that's actually going to happen for each of these guys, okay? So we notice once we finish this, right, there's actually no more options, right? We're only going to go essentially 3 rows deep here, okay? So let's write down uh, all the possibilities here. And once again, there's only 2 options, right? Either luxurious or cheap. So each of these is going to be 1/2. Okay? Now, once you look at this, right, we'll realize there's actually 12 total possible combinations here, right? So what do we mean by that? Okay, so they can go to Hawaii by plane luxuriously, or they can go to Hawaii by plane and go cheap, right? Or they can go Hawaii by cruise luxuriously, or Hawaii by cruise cheap. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to multiply each number along each path, right? So if you want to go Hawaii by plane luxurious, that's going to be 1/3 times 1/2 times 1/2, which is equal to 1/12. Okay, so that path, right, this first path has a probability of 1/12, right? And it turns out actually that all of these have the same probability, right? 1/3 times 1/2 times 1/2. So all of these different combinations, right, has a 1 in 12 chance of being selected, right? So if they select Asia by plane luxuriously, that has a 1 in 12 chance of being selected. Okay. All right, now let's answer the questions. What is the probability they take a luxurious trip to Europe? Okay, so what does that mean? It means we have to pick all of the branches out of these 12, right? Which of them have a luxurious trip and which of them are going to Europe, okay? So, well, here's the branch for Europe. Okay, and out of these, which ones have them taking a luxurious trip? Okay, what's going to be Europe on the plane luxurious or Europe on a cruise luxurious, right? So that's going to be 1/12 plus 1/12, which is 2/12. Okay, so what does that mean? It means out of these 12 total possible ways, right, 2 of them have them going to Europe on a luxurious trip. Okay, what about the probability that they take a cheap trip by cruise? Okay, so similarly, we want to count out of these 12, right, which one have them taking a cruise cheaply? Okay, So if you take a look at this first branch, right, that's Hawaii plane luxurious. We don't want that. This is Hawaii by plane cheap, right? So that doesn't count either. Okay, so we're going to do the Hawaii cruise cheap here, Europe cruise cheap, and Asia cruise cheap. Okay, so there are three ways, right? They can take a cheap trip by cruise. Okay. What about the last one? Was there probability they take a plane to Asia? Okay, so here's the Asia part. Okay, of course, we realize that we don't even need to worry about these, right? Because we know they're going to Asia. We know they're going to go by plane. Okay, so then Asia by plane, there's actually two ways, right? Notice that the question doesn't ask about the budget, right? Okay, so we have to consider, okay, going to Asia by plane, there's two ways that can happen. So the last answer here, right, the probability to take a plane to Asia, that's going to be 2 out of 12.